All right, well, welcome. Here we are, podcast number 3, and today Dylan bribed a special guest to into chatting with us here and listening to some of Dylan's shenanigans. So, welcome, Chris. It's a pleasure to have you here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you, if you don't mind?
Not a whole lot to know about me. Name's Chris Pike from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Been here my whole life. Maybe one day I'll get out. I've known Dylan for a long time. I think we first played ball together 35, 36 years ago when we were 12 or 13. I don't remember the exact year, but yeah, involved in youth sports probably for the on and off for 20 plus years now.
And
So yeah.
primarily baseball, or
Oh yeah, baseball. Yeah, that's my sport. Dylan and I played baseball together, youth baseball together at 12, 13 years old. I made a brief appearance in college, on the baseball field. As a pitcher, did have some arm trouble. I can attribute most of the end of my career to the arm trouble.
probably a lack of icing. What do you think, Dylan?
No, not at all. But you need to put your microphone close to your face, Kyle.
Who?
You.
Is it supposed to? Oh, maybe it can turn. Is that better? Thank you.
That's much better. Much better.
I didn't even know this thing did that. All right, so you had a little bit of arm trouble, and is that what it ended your career ultimately, or?
Ultimately, that's what ended it. There were some other factors in play, which maybe we'll talk about or not, that were interesting. I've talked about them a lot over the years. That, as Dylan knows, we grew up, the Baton Rouge baseball landscape, I think largely because of the success LSU was having back then. It's a big deal here. Baseball's a big thing in Baton Rouge and always has been since we were kids. And we grew up, we played with guys that, I'm still friends with today that played on the big league level for a long time. And those were our peers, our teammates growing up. And I'll be honest with you, when I got to college, I did have arm trouble. But I also had this as an adult. It's crazy to say it, but I came to the realization that I was not going to play on the professional level. And so why was I doing it now? There was, and I felt like there needed to be a next level. And when I realized that there wasn't going to be, I quit, for lack of a better word. I mean, the arm trouble definitely contributed to it. But it was a mental thing too, that, and it's crazy to think about it and talk about it now. And I've talked about it before, where, it was okay to just play in college. So why did it need to be more than that? But at the time, it did need to be more than that for me. And like I said, when I realized that it wouldn't be, I didn't stop loving the game, but I felt like I was sort of wasting my time playing. So I pretty much immediately got into coaching after that. I had a younger brother, good bit younger than me, that I helped coach. And then, man, I've coached every age group from 6 years old to high school in the past 20 years. So, yeah, seen it all.
Thank you for that introduction there, and thinking about like the way it went for you, and whenever you had that realization that you weren't going to go to that next level, how does that change, or how does that impact how you communicate with kids, the importance of the game, or maybe the real value of the game? And I don't know if that question makes sense.
Yeah, well, that's a big question. It impacts a lot how I try to influence the kids and what I've told them, in a couple of ways. I mean, right on the baseball side of it, and I have a son that's in high school, freshman this year, and I've told him this, and I've told a lot of kids, don't make the mistake I did. As a youth baseball coach, our goal solely on the baseball side was to prepare them for high school. That's it. I wasn't teaching, a 10-year-old how to be a college baseball player or a professional. I was trying to prepare them for high school. What they did beyond that was not necessarily up to me. But I've encouraged these kids to, not make the same mistake I did. Worry about the level you're at. And if you, again, the simplest way to say it is what I said. If all you ever do, not to minimize it, is play college baseball, that's phenomenal. I don't have the statistics in front of me of how many athletes make it to college. Again, in my case, there needed to be a next level, which I think was fueled by the fact that close friends of mine were already playing professional baseball. And as kids, I competed with those guys. We were on the same team. Maybe they were better than me. They were, but we were equals in a sense. And so I've tried to tell the kids, I think it's great to dream big. And my son wants to play professional baseball. That's wonderful. But first, we're going to worry about high school, and then we can worry about college. And and I don't want him to fall in the same trap that I did, where I think goals are very important, but if those goals are too high, then, in my case, I felt like a failure. In reality, I wasn't, but I felt that way as a 17, 18-year-old. And so, yeah, I don't want the kids today to set those goals in baseball to be so high. We all dream about, pitching in the World Series or whatever, and that's great. But again, if you don't reach that, which the statistics say you're not going to, it's okay. I mean, I could have, in hindsight, had I just played 4 years of college, that great. That's all it needed to be. At whatever level, of college it was. So yeah. And I mean, there's lots more to your question on, the getting away from the sports side of baseball and the life lessons that are weaved in and out of all team sports, but particularly baseball, are just incredible. I mean, they're numerous, and you could do an entire show on a single life lesson that the game of baseball teaches you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you mentioned goals, and Dylan, like, please jump in. I know I'm usually the one that interrupts, but feel free to be the interrupter for a little bit. Whenever you mention the goals, I like the idea, and most of the time too, I don't really have the imagination to make stuff up. So usually what I say, like, it's somehow rooted in sports psychology or research or something like that. But the idea of setting lofty goals, and it's very powerful, right? You set those big time goals, and whether it's playing in the major league or whatever the case may be. But then that can't necessarily be the focus. Like, the focus has to be on the day to day, the process, being very process oriented, learning to love the game because you love the game, not because you think it's going to result in you playing in the major leagues or whatever. But I also think another thing that's important to mix in, and I know it's different for different people, but is sort of the spiritual aspect too, of, like, in our goal setting, if we're Christians, Dylan and I being Christians, I maybe make the assumption you are too, but like you have this goal too of, trying to be more like Jesus and trying to spread that information. And you might use baseball as a vessel for that. So you kind of set these goals in such a way to where, just like you're saying, playing the game ends up being fulfilling the goal, whether you make it to the professional league or not, or even to college.
Yeah, I think, we either talked about this on the phone or in one of the podcasts, was being content and happy with where you are, right? And it's okay. Like, when I think we were talking about it in the sense of, having a bad weekend or losing a game or whatever, and seeing that as a blessing and being able to learn from it and not let that get us down and deter our future. And I think, me and Chris have a very similar story from college, where I would, obviously we both had the same friends that were, going to play pro ball. And we had, Chad, who went straight out of high school, and being an equal to them at one point in our lives. And you get to a point where the guys are either better than you or the same as you. And it's like, holy crap, what is this? Like, we were all stars in high school. Then you get to college and it's like, what do you do now? Right. And then not having my dad there, who was there with me every day practicing. And, it was up to me at that point to get better and be happy with where I was, but I wasn't, right? I felt like I should have been better. Um, I, uh, I should have been in those situations where me and Chris have talked about this before, is there's a sense of jealousy there, right? And where you're jealous of those guys because you feel like you should be those guys. You should be in the same situation as them, and you're not happy with where you are. And, you know, it's really tough for these kids nowadays too, because of all the crap that they're seeing, right? I mean, they're seeing things that we weren't seeing at such a younger age. And I think for them to be happy with where they are, and all the parents, allowing these kids to club hop, to supposedly get them in a better situation, play the positions that the parents or they think they should be playing, all these things. It's really tough to get a kid nowadays to be happy with where he is and to embrace the journey that it takes to get to where they want to be. I think it's harder now than it was when me and Chris, I know it's harder now than it was when me and Chris were playing, so that kind of brings us into the whole, like, Black Sox era of being able to gel so quickly. And really, I mean, if you think about where we were with the Black Sox, we were all happy with where we were. And it wasn't because we were winning. I mean, we were happy from day one, before anything ever started with that team. And we definitely didn't have the distractions that the kids have now. We didn't have the club hopping. Obviously you had similar situations, but not even close to what it is now, right?
That's right.
And I definitely want to talk about, why we were who we were and how we got to the situation that we got to and became such a phenomenal team in the matter of one season, so I know I deterred from what we were talking about, but that's what I like to do. So,
Yeah.
If I could touch on something real quick. Sometimes I think we get, I don't really know what the word is I'm trying to come up with here, but the term happiness, I think we might overuse that sometime, so happiness is a choice. It's not really something that I don't know, something that we are, we choose to be happy. I had a pastor one time that said we weren't put on earth to be happy. And I like that. And so I would even wonder, like, going back to the Black Sox days, I bet there were a lot of times you weren't actually happy, but y'all were a team and it was purposeful, and y'all were together. And I think that's kind of the bigger thing to think there is it's not about being happy. It's about the other things, right? It's you're working together, you're unified in a goal, you become friends, you become brothers. And I think looking back, yeah, all of that was a happy time, but in the moment there were probably lots of unhappy times that occurred.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me just on that note. One thing I've just carried this with me my entire life. My high school baseball coach, he had a saying that resonated at the time, and it's a little bit relevant to what we're talking about now with happiness. And his saying was, in terms of sports, but apply it to life too. Always be pleased, but never be satisfied. There was a difference between being pleased or happy with where you are and being satisfied. Still, find the happiness, but push yourself, keep pushing yourself. As soon as you're satisfied, then you're complacent, and you don't need to progress anymore.
Yeah.
The Black Sox thing, golly, I mean, 35 years later, we still talk about this. I had lunch 2 months ago with 3 of our Black Sox, all 3 of which played in the big leagues. You want to know the secret to being really good at 13 and 14? Have 3 big leaguers on your team. The joke, one of them was a younger brother. Actually, he was our bat boy, and that's what we as the legend grows, the Black Sox were so good that our bat boy made it to the major leagues.
It's true. It's true.
Look,
And-
I touch a little bit on what you were saying, Dylan, and like why did we gel so much? So a little bit of a backstory. All of us grew up in Baton Rouge, which at the time was a small town, and we played in the same leagues. And maybe we knew some of us knew each other, some of us didn't. Very few of us went to school together ever. I don't think I did. Maybe there was one other guy on the Black Sox that I went to school with. And that was the first year. It was a 1-year deal. And look, 35 years later, we're still friends. I talk, this is not Dylan and I talk pretty regularly. One of the guys that made the major leagues, he and I have coached together for the last 8 years. We've coached our kids, same age group. So it's crazy to think that this one 13 or 14-year-old baseball team 35 years ago that we just met, it was kind of like the Bad News Bears. We just got assembled somehow, and we're still friends. And maybe it was because we were pretty good. I'll be honest with you. And maybe that bred a lot of happiness. The fact that we were pretty good.
Now, was it just one season though, or y'all played together for several years, right?
One season. That's what I'm saying. That's what's so crazy.
Season.
So like the team, my son's team, which other Black Sox and myself have coached for 8 years. For the most part, we have 7 or 8, 9 of those kids that played together since they were 6 years old. And so that's great. And that's one of the things that I wanted to create with that group. But talking about the Black Sox, the reality is no, it was a 1-year deal. And it's easy to think, well, you're going to play on some random team for 1 year when you're 13 years old, but when you're 48, maybe you remember the guys' names, maybe you don't. In our case, I'm still in touch with over half of that team, and it's wild to think about that.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about it too, I mean, if you look at the team as a whole, I mean, we had some studs. But then we had some very average players too, and what was interesting about that team is that, and I don't know if it was your dad, I don't know. And that's what I've been trying to think about when I was thinking about this podcast is like, what is it that made us so good? Like, again, one season, and how did we get to that level that quickly? Like, that's what kind of racks my brains about nowadays, right? And it is different. It's a lot different. I think teams nowadays have to grow together. Well,
that's a hard question to answer. I'm thinking about it right now. Like, how are we so good? So if I'm being real honest here, so there were 2 guys plus the bat boy that legitimately pitched in the major league for a long time. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the first secret to success. But beyond that, that's not the only reason we were good. I mean, they were primarily pitchers. They didn't pitch every game. We had a handful. This was not an all-star team. This was not, hey, we're going to go around Baton Rouge and we're going to cherry pick 12.
Yeah, it wasn't recruiting.
Wasn't anything like that. It was a bunch of neighborhood kids, different neighborhoods, but that got together. I don't know what the genesis of that team was, Dylan. I mean, we were kids. I don't know, how my dad and Kenny knew each other and ended up coaching this thing and how we ended up that way. So I don't know that I can answer why we were so good. So
the one thing that I can come up with. So if you look at what we did back then versus what these kids are doing now, me and Kyle talk about this all the time, is that repetition. And, me and Kyle want to go to the corrective exercise end of the spectrum and start correcting kids' movements and all this kind of stuff. But when I think about what I did every single day, my dad was hitting me 500 ground balls a day. If I was pitching, I would pitch maybe 200. I mean, it was so different back then in that I think every kid on that team their parents were working their asses off with us versus nowadays. It's so much different where these kids are either going to lessons, that may be it, or they may only be working during practice. And one of my things with that team, I feel like every single kid on that team wanted to be so good.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest difference is the parents were involved, and it was all about making your kid better, but not trying to position. Like, I don't think there was any issues with parents trying to, talk to your dad about my parents should be playing this position or my kid should be playing this position. My kid, you didn't have any of that. It was, we just wanted to make our kids better, and that's it.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
look, I think, go ahead. I'm sorry, Kyle.
well, on the spending time with kids, statistically speaking, and I did look this up. Dads in the 2020s spend three times more time with their kids than they did in the 1980s. So if you look at the statistics, parents were spending less time with their kids back in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. But here, I wonder, from your perspective, Dylan, I know your dad spent time with you. I mean, we've talked about that a lot. I think your dad was different on a lot of respects. Chris, perhaps your dad was too. But do you really think other players on the team kind of had that same thing? Was it unusual because parents there did spend more time with their kids trying to get better? Which, again, goes against what statistics say.
I think so.
You think so? So here's what I was thinking, Dylan, while you were talking to what's different between us at 13 and a 13-year-old now, as it relates to the parents and all these lessons. Everything today is so crafted, right, for the success of your kid. In our day, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of technology and social media and all that sort of stuff. But we didn't have that. So what did we do? We get home. First thing we would do would be watch the Cubs on WGN, and then after that we'd round up, 6 friends and grab a tennis ball or something, and we'd go in the front yard and we'd play till dark. So what did we learn? That maybe this is what I see some of the kids lacking, a lot of the kids lacking today that we had was knowing how to compete. Okay, you and I are in a front yard with a tennis ball, and maybe we didn't have gloves. We were, we're throwing it at you. That's how you got out. Peg ball.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Tough, but we learned how to compete. Because there was no mom or dad in the yard refereeing this game or umpiring. We would. I'm sure we got in fights with each other, and but we learned how to compete, and we learned the want to win. I'm gonna tell you, that's one of the lessons we try to teach our team over the past few years. I remember one day we sent them home with, go home, look up the definition of compete, and come back to the next practice, and you're going to explain to me what you think the word compete means. So I think that's one of the biggest differences in sports between our generation and the kids today. By and large, they don't know how to compete the same way we did. And I'll give you an example to the contrary of what I just said. We have a kid on our team whose dad we played against the Black Sox, is ironic. He's the...
Who was it?
Huh?
Who?
Michael Becker.
Yeah.
My oldest friend in the world. I mean, I've known Michael. We were across the street neighbors since we were 3 years old. And so his son has been on our team for the past 7 years. His son is a full age group younger than what our team was, but he played with us. And, his son is the youngest of 4. He's in, I guess he'll be in 7th grade this year. My son's in 9th grade. Michael's son is in 7th grade. Michael, his son's oldest brother is a senior, and he'll be playing college baseball. His second oldest brother is a freshman at Catholic High. He will play college baseball. So what did the youngest one learn that some of the other kids didn't? He knows how to compete, and that's why he was able to compete with kids that are 2 grades ahead of him, because he knew how to compete. You know, he has to compete every day at home for French fries, or his brothers are not going to leave him any food, you know. And so I was able to really see the difference between a kid that knew how to compete and a kid that doesn't know how to compete. And talent aside, you know, there's very talented kids out there that don't know how to compete.
You know what I think is interesting about competition too, and I don't want to like take this in a different direction. So this will be just a quick aside. But I don't know if you've ever heard of game theory. So game theory is this whole branch of research about behaviors and this type of stuff. And we learn at a very, very early age. So whenever we're a toddler and we start interacting with other people, you know, I learned that, well, I'll get to play more if I act this certain way. You know, if I don't take all the toys and I let this kid have some of the toys, well, then I get to play for longer. But that idea of competition, learning how to compete, learning how to play, starts very, very early. And I do think that often is missed in today's age. You see a lot of kids that they just don't spend that much time with others. They spend more time watching YouTube or playing video games or doing this, again, very, very early, because it starts at the beginning of human interaction. That's how you learn how to, how to compete. And if you ever heard the saying, you know, it doesn't matter whether you win or lose. It really, what matters is that you get to play. And so that's kind of the thing, is learning a set of behaviors that allows you to get to play the game, which in turn is competition as well.
Yeah, look, and let me jump in, because I'm glad you said that, because when Dylan was talking earlier, you know, how did the Black Sox, how did we gel so well? You know, with just 1 year, and it goes to what you just said, Kyle. I was thinking this, because we didn't have, you know, the world was so different for us. The idea of being thrown onto a team with 10 other kids that I never met before, we were able to adapt and accept that, because we were used to playing in the yard with neighborhood kids who maybe we didn't know them all, you know. And you know, kids today are on a team with all their friends, and you know, they already have everybody's Snapchat that's on the team or whatever, whereas we didn't have that. And so yeah, I think that's part of it too. Why
my son is 6, and he's had, let's say, 80% of the same teammates since he was three, maybe 4. But then I've thought of like, hey, we're building a young team. They've got a great coach, right? They're going to grow together. But that makes me wonder now, right? He's not going to be able to be with these kids for forever, thank God.
Well,
so maybe there is a little bit, and every now and then a new kid comes in and stuff, but it is
then
a lot of the same.
And you know, I mean, my dream for the team we were coaching at 6 years old was we're going to keep the same team until they get to high school. The reality is you do have attrition, and it's, you know, largely we kept the same team, but there's new faces. I'll say this to that point, Kyle. I love the idea. I do love the idea of a team growing up together. I've said this, so I only played baseball and went to school with one person in my entire life. Ironically, his son has been on the team that we coached also. Went to high school with him, you know, junior high, high school, and also played baseball with him. Every other person that I ever played a day of baseball with, I never went to school with them a day in my life. And I think that's a wonderful thing. So I wouldn't say I'm a fan of a school team at 6 years old, you know, and then because you just grow up with your school friends and that's it. I mean, look at Dylan and I. If it wasn't for that 1 year, I would not know him at all, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think there's a huge benefit in staying together, but particularly if it's with kids that you otherwise wouldn't have any way of knowing them.
Yeah, and when you think of the way y'all came together and stuff like that too, and I just can't help but think that a greater power organized that for a very specific reason. And looking back over the past 35 years and knowing about y'all's friendship, now we can look back and see, well, that is the reason the Lord brought it together, or whatever brought it together. Because there was more to be done outside of that. But I'm not saying that everybody's head goes there, but I tend to kind of gravitate right to that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was special, man.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
35 years later, we're still talking about it.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. And everybody, anybody that played baseball at that time knew who we were, and all that was one season. That's what blows my mind is one season, and everybody our age, that played baseball at that time or around our age still knows who we are, who we were,
Here, I've got a funny story for you. So same, Michael that I was just talking about, whose son was on my team. So Michael played on the other, there was another team that was really good. They were the Phillies back then, if you remember.
Yeah.
They didn't beat us, but they were good. So Michael is coaching a fall team this fall with his son that has been on my team. And he named his team the Black Sox.
That's awesome. Oh, wow. The legend lives on.
That's right. That's right.
That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
So I would like to, unless y'all wanted to do something different, talk a little bit more about parent involvement.
Yeah.
And
I wanted to bring something up about that before you get into yours. So, Chris, do you think that I still believe, though, that our parents worked with us more organically than it is nowadays, as far as getting in the backyard or going to a park or whatever. Like, yeah, I was just like you. After school, I would play with my friends, but my dad, granted, this was different and probably looked more as child abuse, what nowadays would be looked as child abuse. But my dad would get me up at 5 a.m. or 6, and he'd go and hit me ground balls. I feel like there was a lot more of that back then. And I do feel like most of the parents on our teams with the Black Sox, think about like Derek Hawes, Kenny, like all those guys. Do you think that their parents were getting out with them and working? Like was I'm sure your dad was.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that they were. Yeah, I think parents for our generation were definitely doing what you were saying. I don't know that I think, again, I think the bigger reason that we were the way we were was because as kids, we were watching it on TV every day after school, and then we wanted to play. So yes, the parents were helping, but I don't want to, look, my opinion, comparing what our parents did to what are the parents today doing or not doing, are the parents today, waking them up at 6 o'clock and going hitting them 100 ground balls? Probably not. But what they are doing that our parents didn't do is they're shelling out thousands of dollars for lessons. And
I agree.
You know what? They're the guys teaching the lessons knew more than our parents did. So I don't know. There's huge differences in our parents and parents today. I mean, I'm a parent today, but I don't know that one's, better or worse than the other.
Yeah.
Different,
I get it. Yeah. Okay.
And I think, Chris, that's an excellent point too, because again, if you look at the data, if you look at the demographic data and some of the research and stuff, yes, a big difference today is that parents are much more involved economically, much more involved time-wise, in that they have to drive their kids to all the things. And so while they're spending more time with their kids, it's in a totally different dynamic, a totally different context. And that creates a sense of pressure, because now there seems to be, and I, of course, don't want to make blanket statements to where all parents are this way, because I know a lot of them aren't, but there seems to be now, there's much more sideline coaching. There's much more pressure because of the economic involvement, and there's much less support, like Dylan's talking about. Like Dylan's dad, probably pushed him a little bit different. They don't do that these days, but I would be willing to bet too that your dad was very supportive, and it was less about pressure of winning because I'm paying for this and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and it was much more of a, again, just a much more holistic type of support. I don't know if that's right or not.
Yeah, that's why I always say kind of the organic thing, So yeah, I
totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I've never really thought about the word winning in today's generation versus ours at that age. But now that you say that, I mean, with with the endless options of organizations and teams and, single A, double A, triple A majors, if you want to win,
don't forget nationals. Don't forget nationals.
This jumping around constantly to find so that you can win, and I mean, look, did we get a trophy at the end of the year? Yeah, we probably did. But did we get a ring every weekend? No. But we do that now, and so it's almost like, I don't know if it's, just the universe. We've created this. I don't know that the desire to win is not a bad thing, but the satisfaction that's of winning when you didn't actually win.
It's getting numbed down, right? It's getting numbed down.
Yeah, yep. I mean, look, I'll tell you a story. We had this is a great tie-in.
Please tell me you're going to tell a story about the rings.
Yes. So we were.
Thank you. I was going to ask you to tell that story.
Maybe our 11-year-old year, could have been 12. So we were the first loser in a tournament. We got second place, which of course gets a ring, right? Yeah. Gigantic ring. And so we did the ring ceremony at home plate after the game. And then, typically what happens is all the parents, mostly the moms, want to come on the field and, take pictures and all this because we won a ring for second place out of 5 teams. So we do the whole charade, right? And then 100% on their own, these 11-year-olds got together, but on the third baseline, and they start sprinting to the left field fence, and we're like, what are they doing? And the whole team, and they get to left field and they throw those rings over the fence as far as they could throw them into the woods. And I'm gonna say a lot of the parents, some of the parents were very supportive of that. Some of them were not. They had to bring that one home and put it on the mantle.
But Dylan told me about, and I wonder, I don't know if you keep in touch with those kids or if there's a way to track them. But to see, maybe that was a one-off event or whatever. But I don't think so. It seems like something that was kind of rooted into them, where they weren't quite satisfied with that. And that's the way they responded. But to see how do they do with that type of a mindset, because I would think they would do much better. And I mean, maybe there could be an argument of, well, they want to win too bad, and maybe that leads to early burnout or something like that. But I would just wonder how they do over time.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, I do stay in touch with all the kids that I've coached. There's a couple, that parents may not. I'm probably not their favorite person. I tried not to worry as much about the parents. I cared about the boys, and I'll tell you, my intention. I still talk to or text at minimum pretty much every kid on the team, and I see them pretty regularly. And that's important to me. So yeah, I intend to keep up with them over the years, and it'll be interesting to see. I firmly believe, even though some kids maybe had better experiences than others, have a different opinion of me than others. But I do believe that when they get to be older, maybe not quite as old as we are, but a little bit older, I think that's where they'll start to realize the value in the coaching that they had.
I always think of it's kind of a theory. I don't know that I have a whole lot to support it. But you hear some people that talk about loving winning. They do it, they play the game, whatever it might be, whatever game or sport or something, because they love winning. You hear other people, I think Tom Brady was one that talked about, it's not that he loved winning so much, he just hated losing. But in sports, such as in life, there's a lot of both, winning and losing. And if you're either geared towards winning or geared away from losing, you won't stick with the game because there's too much of both of it. Where I think everybody fits into that sticks with the game is that they love the game, whether it's winning, whether it's losing. At the end of the day, yeah, emotions will go up and down, depending on the event. But at the end of the day or end of the season, they just love the game. And that's why they do it. And that's why they keep doing it. And ultimately, that's why many of them end up succeeding.
Yeah, look, I love this. So, winning. So what is winning? Winning, can we say that another word for winning would be success, right? So let's just talk about baseball and then, the relation to life. But I'm going to say baseball, it's the only sport in the world that I know that you guaranteed you are going to fail way more than you succeed. Okay. So if you get lost in this translation of what is winning and winning becomes, success, well, then you may have some problems with baseball and with life, because you're the best baseball players in the world ever in history. If they succeed 30% of the time, they go into the Hall of Fame. Right?
Yeah,
it's a
that's
game of
crazy.
failure. And it's crazy to think that. And it's the only sport. If Tom Brady has a 30% completion record, but if he did play baseball, right? If he had stuck with baseball and he hit 300, well, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. So it's so yeah, I mean, I like what you're saying. This emphasis on winning, you got to be careful with that, because I think in a kid's mind that winning translates to succeeding, and the reality of baseball is you're not going to succeed. You're gonna succeed hopefully 30% of the time, probably only 20.
Well, and a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
times too, we see that kids can be successful through losing too, right? I mean, there's so many. Like I go home from, just like any other coach, I go home from a tournament that, let's say you go 0-3, you go home from that tournament and you're just, you're pissed at yourself, you're pissed at the kid, you want to know, you're ruminating, you're reviewing video to see what went wrong. But when you step back and think of it, a lot of times you may be better than you were a month ago.
Absolutely.
You may have played better than you did a month ago, right? But baseball is baseball, and we're gonna lose some games, but you were still successful in that you got better that weekend.
Yeah, so here's the way we tried to teach this, and my son said this to me the other day, and it was a pretty proud moment. He said, "Dad, there's only wins and lessons. There's no law. There's no such thing as a loss. You win or you learn," and that's just a great way to look at it.
Roby Show
Sometimes
used
I
to
don't
say
think,
that all the time. All the time. We win and we learn. We don't lose.
and sometimes I do think that's something that's said a lot, but I don't ever really think about it. But what that also means is if you're winning, you're not learning. So that's it. You got to take those moments of when you don't win. It's fine to identify why you didn't. And we've talked about too of like, could you change the language around it to where there's this idea in mindfulness to where things are not good or bad. They might move you closer to a goal or take you further away, but they're not good or bad. They just are. And then trying to present it that way. And especially in baseball, I think of it, and I didn't play for a long time. I still have my 1987 T-ball trophy. Participation. There was no tournament, just participation. Two of them, by the way. But this, I think it was, but this idea of it's like a chess game, right? To where every move, whether it goes the way you think it should or not, is something, or you just have to believe, right? Every move will end up in a spot that you want to be. It might not be this game, it might not be next game, it might be next season, but it's just this belief that it's constantly a chess game of pieces moving and moving in the right direction.
Oh, that's interesting. So, again, the team that myself and Chad coached, and I'm going to give Chad 100% of the credit here. It's one of the big leaguers from the Black Sox. With our team, we wanted to find win. We were very careful in the tournaments we played. Okay. You want the kids to have moments of success. It's important. They can't go 0-30. They're not going to like the game. I mean, our goal is to make them love the game. If they wake up tomorrow and they still want to play, then we're doing a good job. And so what Chad was very careful to do was to, let them get the wins that they need to get when we're choosing our competition and what tournaments we're going to play in. Let them get the wins that they need to get, but at the same time, we're going to challenge them. We're going to play some teams that are going to beat us. Now we're not going to go play the team that's going to beat us 28-0. That's not really going to do either team any good. But we really liked those hard fought losses, and we were very careful to select every weekend of where we were going to play, and get when we felt like the boys needed a win. Well, maybe next weekend we may pick a little bit easier one because they need some wins right now. If we're riding high and we're coming, then all right, let's challenge ourselves a little bit, And I think the boys, way more than the parents, sort of got that, and I mean, some of our happiest moments with the kids' happiest moments were the games that we were, we scored less runs, but we played really well, and the boys took it away,
I think there's a lot too in, what it is we celebrate as parents, as coaches, not, it's hard to do. It's very hard to do, being the father of a 6-year-old baseball player that plays at a high level for being a 6-year-old. Trying to not celebrate the wins, but constantly celebrating the effort. And it's hard, right? And I think our coach is very good about this, but trying to get in that. And what we do too is it mitigates emotions. What we want to do is if we don't want the lows to be as low, well, then we can't make the highs as high. So whenever they have a win or they have a big win, I think it's important for us to celebrate with them, but again, understand that we also play a little bit of a role in emotional regulation and letting them know same thing. Like, this is just a process. We played great this week, good effort. We got the win. That's wonderful. Let's celebrate, but not really trying to like overdo it with that emotion, if that makes sense. So that way, whenever they do lose, we're the same as the parent or the coach. We put some good effort, had some good plays, didn't quite work out, but we kind of learn. We help them learn how to navigate those emotions a little bit better.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, was it you that said? No, it was that was a book where it said not to ride the roller coaster of baseball, and that's what it talks about is, the highs not being too high, the lows not being too low. And you have to even it out more. You can't go crazy and jump up, yell and scream whenever one of your boys hits a in the park home run.
Sure.
Sure.
And that was hard for me as
it's so hard.
And as a parent. I mean,
yes.
I'm a competitor, Hey, I like to win. In fact, I hate losing.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, that's the reality is you do have to temper that. Chad had a great way, and I'll keep it PG, but, he had a great way of relating this to the team. He compared, even a moment of let's say a failure, a colossal failure in a moment. He compared that to using the bathroom. And he said, what do you do when you use the bathroom? You flush it. And that's what you do with these moments. Just flush it. And it's gone forever,
Uh-huh.
And that's one of those life lessons that we talk about with baseball. I have more failures than I do successes every day in business. But I still have to come in here tomorrow, and try to get a win,
Well, Chad's not a good example. He's emotionless, bro.
Well, he knows the business side of the game.
He's different.
Well, no.
Dylan and I have talked a little bit about that. Like, it's in some of the sports psychology stuff, they call it the sewer cycle, right? Where, things that go down the sewer. But then there's this one sports psychologist, and I can't remember his name right now, but he had a thing of he would get some of these teams he was working with or the players, he would get them a little battery powered toilet. And so if something was just like you're talking about, they go over, they push the button on the toilet, and it makes the sound of it going down. But it is that idea of physically flushing it and then just moving on. Easier said than done. But the point is, whenever you get in the habit of doing that, it slowly becomes easier to flush it and just move on.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's all so great, I learned a lot So I'm a guy, again, that grew up around the game, played at a fairly high level, made it to college. I feel like I knew more about baseball than 99% of the people in this world. I found out, thankfully, that the 1% that I didn't know as much of are the guys like Chad that played professionally, and to coach alongside that for 8 years, it was pretty incredible when he would say things to the kids, and the light bulb would go off in my head of like, golly, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Thought of that. It's like, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Those guys just know another level, that we don't. And it was fun. I learned a lot by being around that.
What I don't know if I know how to word this. And we're at 50 minutes here, so I don't know if we want to like get into something quite different or maybe just extend this a little bit more. But I wonder. I saw this little clip the other day, and it was basically it was a major league player. I don't know what his name is, but he was saying that one thing he would like to tell parents of kids is how did he word it? It was something. It's basically like let them have fun. Like just stop it so much with all the this and that and putting the pressure on them and the winning, and just letting them go have fun with the game. But I wonder. And again, my son too. We pay for extra lessons. We have a kid comes over and works with him, or he's starting to come over and work with him on certain days. And one of the reasons we do that is we think, well, he's gonna my son, he's gonna work a little bit differently with these kids, right? He's gonna have fun. It'll be different or whatever. But then I kind of wonder too is there a point where we as parents just need to stop it? Like stop it with the extra lessons, stop it with this or that. Let the kids have fun. They need to practice, yes, especially as tough as it is these days, but it kind of being like, you know what, I'm not going to force you to practice. If you want to practice, practice. If you don't, whatever. You're not going to play the game very long, maybe, but
100%. Here's my take on that. I said earlier, as a youth coach, because you're talking about your 6-year-old, my goal is that then when they wake up tomorrow, they still want to play. And
absolutely.
My second goal is, to prepare them for high school. Whatever they do after that is not up to me. I already said that. I believe from the big leaguers that we know, Dylan, that there's no coach or lesson that they got that made them that. I think they made themselves that. They're supremely talented players, but they outworked everyone else. They outworked me. They outworked Dylan, and they did that on their own. Did their parents force them? Maybe, but I don't think that they did. I know these guys. I think that they did it on their own. I'll give you another, example, especially with 6-year-old, because I think the answer to your question, Kyle, for me is it depends on the age, right? So we had a kid, never forget this. We had a parent reach out to our organization, for 8 years old. And the parent had a lot of questions about how many bullpens a week this kid was going to throw, what was our pitch count. I don't even remember all the questions they asked. It wasn't sent to me. It was sent to someone else in the organization. And the response to that parent was, I don't think we're a fit for you, because at 8 years old, the only question you should be asking us is, do the kids get snowballs after the game? Right? Like, not dads that are coaching. These are big league baseball players that are giving you that answer. And it's true. Now look, as you get older, my team last year was, 13 years old. Kids going to high school this year, some of them, we turned it up a little bit because, all right, now I've got to get you ready to go try out with juniors and seniors. But no, 6. So it depends on the age. But yeah, I think the most important at 6 years old is get them a snowball. That's really all that matters.
And there's pretty good support on the thing too about the age and them doing it on their own, to where And pretty much all athletes that make it to a high level, I would say performers, because it's not just athletes, but musicians or whatever the case may be. There is an age, and it tends to be around puberty, associated with some emotional changes and stuff like that, and just getting older and starting to do things with other friends. There is an age where they make the decision of, this is what I want to do, and I'm willing to make these sacrifices. I understand that this might not be fun, but I'm willing to do that in order to pursue this game. And it's very much self-guided. Parents, in fact, if parents try to push that, the kids usually push back, and that leads to early burnout. But yeah, to your point, Chris, there's an age. They make the decision themselves, and they usually they can push through more of the harder aspects of the game once they make that decision and are willing to make that sacrifice of time with friends and other types of things.
Yeah, and I think, coaching 12U, it has a lot to do with where the kids are, right? Age, yes, but also where they are, right? And
Like skill level? What I should say,
skill level and then mindset. Like, I think a lot of times a lot of these parents are pushing their kids to do things that they necessarily don't want to do. And that may not be that they're not going to be baseball players, but I think this is a whole nother episode, but that's the problem with playing year round right now. You have 2 months off basically, and you're playing the rest of the year, right? So I think a lot of times these kids are getting burnt out just for the sheer aspect of constantly playing the game and not being able to reset, get away for a little while. And I think that depending on where the kid's at, right? Like my older boy, he doesn't ever want to stop. Like he just wants to go, baseball, baseball, baseball. And that's fine if that's what he loves and that's what he wants to do. I'm down with it, right? I'm happy about it. But then when you look at another kid that may need 3-4 months off throughout the year, and that kid may end up being better, right? It's just, I think a lot of times we live through them too much, and we want to push when maybe they need to go and even at 12, 13, go and get a snowball, right?
Absolutely.
Look,
I think as soon as you fill up your cup of desire, then you've had enough. You don't want anymore, right? Your cup's full. And the minute we give these kids all that they can handle or all that they ever wanted, then they don't want it anymore. I always want to stop short of that, right? Using Chad again as an example as a coach, he told one of our parents, I remember had asked him, we never did anything in the fall. My son's doing it now because he's in high school. We never did anything in the fall. We were, we let the other sports play out. And some of the parents would ask us, what do we need to be doing in the fall? Go play football. So we didn't play football. All right. Play soccer. All right. This is a conversation I saw Chad have. Well, he doesn't play soccer. It went through a few, and he said, okay, well, then take him fishing. I don't touch a baseball for 4 months, There's the physical side of just needing the recovery, which I'm not an expert on. But then there's the mental side too. Check out for a little while. That's a good thing for kids. If you get to D1 college, yeah, you probably need to, and you want to play pro ball, you're going to need to live and breathe this. But at 10, you don't.
And there's so much on that too, and it's I feel like it's a hard topic. But again, I do look at the research and stuff, and that early sports specialization, it increases the chance of injury, the chance of burnout, the chance of mental illness, the chance of this. Like there's nothing that really supports early specialization. Yet you have parents and probably some coaches that say this is the way it's got to be if you want to excel in the sport. And again, at a time, yes, you have to make that decision. But again, 8, 9, 10, I would say even up to about 15, they need sports sampling. They need to do other things. Dylan and I talked about this too, and think about how a game like soccer could potentially improve their ability to play baseball
100%.
because of the footwork, because of the different types of movement patterns. But people just don't want to believe it. And again, I can give them the data, and they just don't.
I'll give you a real world example of exactly what you just said. So Chad's son. Chad was a major league pitcher for, I don't know, 15, 17 years. World Series ring. His son is a very good pitcher. He's a couple of years ago decided to start playing soccer. And and he loves soccer and he's very good at it. But it also made him a better baseball player because of the footwork that you're talking about. He's going to have his best year ever next spring. And I'm going to tell you, it's because of the soccer has helped him that much. It's incredible. Exactly what you just said.
See, and the problem we run into in DFW is if you don't play fall ball, if your club is not playing fall ball, and let's say you're just doing maybe a couple workouts a week, whatever, a practice a week or whatever, you don't keep a team. And to me, I've been fighting that battle since 8U.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not familiar with the landscape there, so I'll take your word for it. I would say that if it were that way here, we just would not conform. I'm gonna end up with a team of Black Sox of kids that maybe this is the only year they ever knew each other, but I got the right guys.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what the result is.
What would the parents do, Dylan, if the kids showed up to practice and you just had a bunch of soccer balls out there?
We talked about that. I remember a couple seasons ago, we talked about that and trying to help these kids with remember we were talking about movement patterns and, corrective exercising, and the parents they don't get it. You talk to them about it. They don't get it. They don't think, no, they just need more baseball, more baseball, more baseball. And that's how it is here. And every single club here plays year round. It is and that's the problem. It's so watered down. It's so overrun by baseball in DFW with so many organizations. I mean, I promise you, I kid you not, we have over 100 clubs in DFW. I promise you. And
those would be clubs playing all the time,
all year round, all year round.
And I know that there's a lot of talent there too. I mean, these are talented clubs and players, but I wish someone would do a study right now for the next 5 years and come back and tell me how many of those extremely talented 12-year-olds even played high school ball. Half of them won't even play high school baseball.
I agree.
They'll quit. They'll be hurt. They won't, I don't know. It's crazy.
It is. It's absolutely insane. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably a good stopping point. I do think there's any variety of these topics we could probably just keep talking about for weeks, I'm sure. Dylan, anything you want to add? Dylan, Chris, anything you want to add before we shut down episode 3 of Unleashing the Baseball Mindset?
I had a good time. I want to do this again.
Yeah,
hey, I would love to have you again. Yeah.
Well, and I've told Kyle this. I've told people around me this. I consider Chris my coaching mentor. He got me through a very, 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 him and his wife both got me through a very tough time in my coaching career. And it's a blessing to have him here for sure. And I think, we can have you on as many episodes as you want to be, because I can say for from my experience and from a lot of other people that have heard me talk about you, that you're definitely one of the I think greatest baseball minded people, from our age group around. Well, and I think you have a lot to offer to the youth baseball, especially. A lot to offer. And I think,
what did I do? So, for 8 years, I did a lot of good things, and I had a lot of successes, and I also had a lot of lessons, right? We were talking about that earlier. And so, yeah, I think now I made a bunch of mistakes, some that I regret, but I learned those lessons, and, a big part of me wishes I could go do it over. And change some of the things that I did. Certainly made my mistakes, but I'm thankful for all of it because I did. I learned those lessons, and Yeah, I mean that's one thing, and I know we got to jump here. I do especially, but you know, you were talking about it, Dylan. We were in Hoover for our big tournament in June when I was talking to you, and I don't ever I can't put a phone to my ear. Everything's on speaker, and so we were in the car headed to one of our games when I was talking to you. My wife was in the car, of course, and you know, she was paying attention and listening, and you know, the next morning she asked me, she said, "How, you know, how's your friend Dylan doing? You know, have you talked to him today?" I'm like, "Let me check in with him." You know, but that's what we do. You've done the same for me. You know, Chad has been that guy for me just because we were coaching alongside each other, and so you know, every mistake I made, I just had to go to him and what am I doing wrong, or you know, this and that. And I've learned so much from everybody, really. So
Cool,
yeah,
man.
I appreciate y'all having me on, and this was a lot of fun. So I'd love to do it again.
Good. I feel pretty confident after this is posted, we're going to at least get to about 8 subscribers, I think. I know. We're growing like a wildfire.
Well, I'll share it to my team, but we may get some downvotes from some of those parents. So I don't.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much again. Chris, thank you so much for your time. It was wonderful. Hopefully we'll get to do this again soon.
Sounds great.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. See y'all later.
All right. Later.